Once again, welcome to ITSE 1345. At the beginning, I told you the process where you have to kind of like effectively export into PL/SQL and manage PL/SQL. Well, that creates a very interesting item. I'm going to go back and talk a little bit about database theory and how you have table 1, table 2, table 3, table 4, all the tables, and how you have primary keys and foreign keys, and how they are related, and how you have constraints. You have constraints at the field, at the row, at the table. You have different items that create that relational concept. Well, understanding that in this PL/SQL process, you're extracting information and you're going to work with it. Well, that creates a very complicated process because the way Oracle works, it actually perceives everything that it does as a user. So in that sense, it considers PL/SQL a user, just like anybody who logs in and does something else. And then to make it even more in-depth or deeper into this process, Oracle would consider a procedure, a function, a cursor, a package, a user. Now, understanding that anytime you have a user, they have to have privileges, which kind of creates this process that there is this issue of dependency, privileges, and compilation that you have to kind of deal with, because you extract information and you have it in PL/SQL, but you are still bound by the rules of referential integrity that we used to build a database. So even though you extract the information, there was the shadow of the theory of the database that was used to extract the information from, in that you have 1 table, 2 tables, 3 tables, and they're related. Well, if you extract information and you're working with it, you have to understand that at some point, if you're ever going to return it, you have to return it in that same structure that it was used that was used to extract it from the database. But what's happening is, going back to the database theory, there was this thing of consistent and inconsistent state that is part of the database theory, which means that when no one's playing with it, it's consistent, and then anytime you access it or play with it, it becomes inconsistent because it's not at rest. So you wind up with this static and dynamic event that you have to deal with. In this idea of consistent and inconsistent state, or in my sense, the way I like to deal with it, static or dynamic, is that you have to be aware that when you run a query, let me give you an example. Hammers. So you write a query for a hammer. Now, when you extract the information, are you going to get one result for one hammer, several results, or are you going to get a page result? Understand that you have a row record or a page scenario. So you type in hammers, you might get a 16-ounce hammer, you may get a claw hammer. There's different types of hammers, so you're going to get a whole thing. Well, so the thing is that when you get this large subset you're going to deal with, that large subset came from somewhere, and it has effectively, rendered that as a locking mechanism. So the thing is that every time you do something in PL/SQL, you are a user on the database, and everything you do has to be constructed in that process as a user. Just like if you were doing an SQL command and you're bound by the rules of the relational database, when PL/SQL, when a procedure or a function does something, it is bound by those same rules that any user would be. Just like every user has different access privileges to be able to extract information. You may have some users that have read-only privileges. You may have some users that have write, read, or whatever privileges. Same umbrella would fall under the PL/SQL construct. So chapter 8 talks to the idea that PL SQL is a user of a database and is bound by all the rules that govern a database. So understand that what we're looking at is the idea that you have to treat that as a set, that a transaction is a sequence of events that have to complete it as a unit. And you don't want to leave anything hanging out there that could create issues for other events, or you don't want to have a scenario where you tie something up that prohibits other activity from happening. So chapter 8 it's an interesting chapter because it moves away from working with PL SQL to try to give you the idea that you, PL SQL, is now a user, and as any user, it's bound by those rules that govern any user that's going to log on to a database.